Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. The alert came in like a mistake. It wasn't a siren, it wasn't a phone call. It was that sharp, flat vibration against the nightstand, the kind that grabs your bones before you're fully awake. My screen lit the bedroom with a cold square of white. Emergency alert. Shelter in place. Do not make a sound. Lock doors. Stay inside. Remain silent. If you hear movement outside, do not speak, do not call out. If you are not alone, communicate by text only. This is not a test. No county logo, no familiar amber header, no weather map. Just a block of text that looked like it had been typed by someone who didn't have time for punctuation. For a second, I thought it was one of those hacked broadcast things people share online, some creepy prank meant to go viral. But the alert tone was the one reserved for the highest tier, the one that pushes through Do Not Disturb, the one that usually means tornado or wildfire or leave now. I sat up slowly, the sheet sliding off my chest. The room was warm from the heater, but my skin went tight anyway. I didn't move my feet. I didn't reach for the lamp. I held the phone close and read it again. Outside, my street was never truly quiet. I lived in a normal neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio, north of downtown, where the steady hum of traffic from Interstate 71 never completely vanished. You could always hear a distant engine, a dog collar clink, someone's television leaking through apartment walls. That night, after the alert, it was as if someone had reached up and twisted the city's volume knob down. Even the interstate sounded far away. I kept my breathing shallow, more out of instinct than logic. Somewhere in the building, a refrigerator clicked. Pipes ticked. The air vent whispered. The familiar sounds of a place that was still alive. Then came a softer sound that didn't belong. A careful scrape, like rubber against concrete. It was distant, maybe outside, maybe in the hallway. I couldn't place it. My mind threw images at me anyway. Someone dragging a foot, someone moving a cart, someone shifting a heavy bag. I held still, staring at the closed bedroom door as if it could blink. My name is Evan Mercer. I'm 32. I work facilities maintenance for a mid-size medical office complex, mostly HVAC filters, access doors, lighting, water shutoffs, boring things that only matter when they fail. I'm not trained for emergencies beyond the kind that involve sprinklers, smoke detectors, and building codes, but I know how locks work. I know what positive pressure means in a stairwell. I know the difference between a door that latches and a door that only looks closed. I slid my thumb across the screen and opened my messages without making the key click sound. I'd never even thought about phone noises as something I'd need to manage, but the alert had planted the idea. A text from my sister Marin blinked at the top, time-stamped 12:47 a.m. Are you up? Did you get it? I typed slowly, holding the phone close so the tiny taps wouldn't echo off the drywall, which was ridiculous, but fear makes rules. Yes, I'm inside, what is it? She replied almost immediately. I don't know, I'm at the hospital, they told everyone to shut doors and stop talking. It's not weather, people in the ER are getting brought in for panic injuries. Nobody is explaining. Stay quiet. I stared at the phrase, panic injuries, and my brain filled in the blanks with nothing useful. Then another sound. A faint, measured thump. Not in my apartment, in the hallway, like someone putting a hand on a door, not a knock, not a bang. A test. The building I lived in was a 3-story walk-up built in the late 1970s. Cheap exterior brick, interior hallways, wooden apartment doors with peepholes. Each unit had a standard handle set and a deadbolt. The deadbolt was mine. The handle set was whatever the landlord bought in bulk. I didn't stand up fast. Fast makes noise. I moved like I was in someone else's house at night. My phone light was enough to see the outline of my dresser, the shadowed shape of my work boots near the closet. I stepped into my socks and glided toward the bedroom door, keeping my weight centered, heel barely touching. I pressed my ear near the door without touching it. Touching makes the door vibrate. Vibrations carry sound. At first, I heard nothing but the steady hush of air through the vent. Then came a sound that made my throat close. A soft metallic click, like a fingernail on a latch. And then, very faintly, the sound of a handle being tried. Turned a fraction, released, turned again, as if whoever was doing it didn't want the latch to clack. As if they were listening for the tiniest reaction. My stomach went cold. I backed away from the bedroom door and moved into the living room with the same careful steps. I didn't have a fancy security system. I had a cheap door wedge I used sometimes when the landlord's maintenance guys came through to fix plumbing, and I didn't want my cat slipping out. The wedge was rubber, bright orange, and it lived under the kitchen sink. I lowered myself onto my knees and opened the cabinet slowly, holding the door with my fingers so it wouldn't bump. The wedge was there. I slipped it free. The main door to my apartment was across the small living room. I could see the thin line of hallway light under it. Another careful click outside. Another handle test, this time closer. Too close. I crawled. I'm not proud of that, but crawling kept my center of gravity low and kept my socks from scuffing. I placed my palm on the carpet, moved my knee, moved my other knee, and got to the door. The deadbolt was already locked. I checked it anyway with a fingertip, not turning, just confirming it was engaged. Then I eased the rubber wedge under the door from the inside and pushed it in until it bit. It wasn't perfect because the door opened inward and the wedge was on carpet, but it gave the door an extra layer of resistance. If someone shoved the door, the wedge would compress and grab. It would also squeak if it moved fast, so I made sure it was set snug. I stayed there, kneeling, my ear near the door. The hallway was quiet. A minute passed. Then I heard it. A soft step and another soft step, like someone walking with deliberate control. The pace was wrong for a neighbor wandering to the vending machine or a late-night bathroom run. Those are sloppy. This was careful. Listening. The steps stopped directly outside my door. I held my breath without meaning to. My chest tightened. The urge to cough came out of nowhere, one of those throat tickles that feels like your body betraying you. I pressed my lips together and swallowed it down. A faint sound at the door. The deadbolt being touched, not turned, just tested. A finger across metal. Then the handle moved slowly, with a control that made my skin prickle. Whoever it was didn't yank it. They rotated it like they knew exactly how much pressure would make the latch retract without a loud snap. The latch held. The handle returned. Silence. I expected a knock next. Something impatient. Instead, I heard a quiet exhale. Not mine. The air outside my door changed tone, like a person had leaned close, like they were listening through the crack around the frame, like they wanted to hear me breathing. I froze so hard my knees started to ache. Seconds stretched. The hallway light under the door stayed steady. Then the footsteps moved on, drifting away down the corridor, pausing at another door, repeating the same patient routine. Handle, pause, listen. That's when it hit me. The alert hadn't said, "Don't go outside because something is dangerous." It said, "Do not make a sound," like sound itself was the trigger. I crawled back from the door and sat with my back against the wall, phone in my hand. My heart hammered, but I forced myself to breathe through my nose, slow, tiny. I typed to Marin. "Someone is in the hall trying doors." Quietly, like they're listening. Her reply came with a delay this time. "We heard that too. Security locked the unit doors." They told us if we hear someone try a door, don't speak. No overhead announcements. Text only. Evan, do you have a solid place inside? I looked around my apartment. It was a one-bedroom with a living room, small kitchen, bathroom, and the bedroom. No interior closet big enough to hide comfortably. Windows on the street side. A flimsy sliding door to a tiny balcony in the back that faced the parking lot. Solid place. I knew what I did at work when there was a security concern. You pick a room with one door, you barricade, you reduce entry points, you stay away from glass, and you keep a line of communication. The bathroom was interior, no window. It was small, but it was the only space with no exterior wall. It had a standard hollow core door, though, the kind you can push through if you're determined. Still, it was better than a window. I typed back, bathroom, no windows. I can sit in the tub. Do that, she replied. And keep your phone on silent, no vibration. I hadn't thought about vibration. I set the phone to silent and turned off vibration entirely. Then I sat there, thinking about how ridiculous it would be if the thing that got me noticed was my phone buzzing against tile. I moved to the bathroom in slow motion, closing doors gently behind me. I didn't turn on the light. I sat on the closed toilet lid at first, then decided that if someone did get in, the tub gave me a lower profile and a hard surface to press against. I got in the tub fully clothed and sat with my knees drawn up back against the cold fiberglass. The building's plumbing made soft noises. Somewhere, someone's refrigerator hummed. The vent fan in my bathroom was off, but the ductwork still moved air faintly. And outside in the hall, those careful steps continued door to door. I tried to picture what kind of person moved like that. Not a drunk, not a lost neighbor, not a normal criminal. Normal criminals want speed. They don't want to spend time listening. I stared at the last line and felt a thin thread of relief. It wasn't just me. The sound in the hallway wasn't my imagination, but that also meant the hallway was being worked door by door, like a methodical sweep. My mind jumped to the same ugly question over and over. How is someone opening the door just because they hear something? The alert had said it waits until it hears something inside, then it opens the door. That sounded impossible unless doors were already unlocked, or unless the thing had a way to open doors that didn't require brute force. A key, a code, a master tool. But even then, here's something implied it wasn't trying every door. It was choosing. Like sound was a beacon. I held my breath again and forced myself to stop. Breathing wouldn't give me away unless someone had their ear pressed to my door, unless they were that close. My phone clock rolled to 1:03 a.m. A faint sound came from my balcony door. A soft tap. Not a knock, not a bang. A tap, like a fingernail. I stared at the bathroom door, as if I could see through it. My balcony faced the parking lot. If someone was out there, they'd have to climb the exterior staircase or use the service alley. Another tap, slightly lower, as if something had shifted position. My apartment suddenly felt smaller. I pulled up Marin's contact and typed, "Something is tapping my balcony door." No reply for several seconds. When she answered, her words felt clipped. "Do not go to the window. Do not speak. Do not move fast. If you have a second lock on the balcony door, check it slowly." I didn't. It was a cheap latch. I'd meant to buy a security bar and never did. I stayed in the tub and listened. The tapping stopped. Then came the sound that changed everything. The faint slide of something against glass like a palm or a sleeve, moving slowly across the door. My heart jumped into my throat. I pressed my hand over my mouth even though I wasn't making sound. The motion on the glass paused, as if whatever was there had found a better listening position. Then the handle of the balcony door moved. It didn't rattle, it didn't jerk. It rotated with patient pressure. The latch held for a second. Then the handle rotated again, a a little more assertively, as if testing the limit. The cheap latch made a tiny, betrayed squeak. The door didn't open. But I knew it could. Those sliding doors always have slop. You can lift them, wiggle them, and they give. I squeezed my eyes shut, fighting the urge to do anything loud. No sudden sprint, no calling 911. The alert had explicitly said not to call out. But I still needed information. If this was happening across the city, someone somewhere would be broadcasting instructions. I thought about the old battery radio I kept in a drawer for storms. I'd bought it after a power outage that lasted 2 days, then forgot about it. It was in the living room. Getting it would mean crossing my apartment, opening drawers, risking a scrape. But information mattered. If the power went out, my phone would be my only light, and my battery would become my lifeline. I waited until the balcony handle stopped moving. Silence. Then, in the hall, footsteps again, closer now. Maybe the person had moved to my side of the building. Maybe they'd finished a loop and were coming back. The idea of being pinned between someone in the hall and someone at the balcony door made my skin crawl. I moved. Not fast, not loud, but I moved with a decision. I stepped out of the tub, keeping my socks planted on the bath mat. I opened the bathroom door slowly, holding the knob so it wouldn't click. I paused, listening, before moving into the living room. The line of hallway light under my front door was still there. The wedge was still set. The balcony door was a dark rectangle in the back. The blinds were closed, but the thin slats let in parking lot light. I kept my eyes away from it. I went to the drawer where the radio was stored and eased it open with 2 fingers. The drawer runners were old. They could squeal if you yanked them. I didn't yank. The radio was there, a compact black unit with a crank handle and a tiny solar panel. It could run on batteries too. I hadn't used it in a year. I checked the battery compartment gently, batteries still inside. I turned the volume knob all the way down before I turned the power on. The radio's tiny screen glowed dimly. I moved the tuning wheel to NOAA weather frequencies from memory because, for storms, that's the standard, and then remembered, NOAA would be weather, not whatever this was. Still, sometimes emergency info piggybacks on any system that reaches people. I raised the volume a fraction, just enough to hear if I held the speaker close to my ear. Static. Then a voice, faint and clipped, repeating in a loop like a recorded message. "This is the Franklin County Emergency Management and Homeland Security," the voice said, careful, formal, like someone reading from a script while trying not to sound afraid. "If you are hearing this, remain indoors. Do not engage with persons attempting entry. Avoid producing audible noise. Disable device alerts and vibrations. Use text messaging. Do not open doors for anyone claiming to be officials unless verified by visual ID through a secure barrier. If you are in a multi-unit building, move away from doors and windows. If possible, shelter in an interior room. Updates will follow." So it was real. Real enough to be on a recorded loop. The message didn't say what the threat was. It didn't say, "Armed intruders," "Chemical spill," "Escape animals," "Storm." It just repeated the rules. Do not open doors. Do not make noise. The hair on my arms lifted. A new sound came from my front door, a gentle tap. Not on the wood, on the metal peephole maybe. A light contact that could have been a fingernail. Then another tap and another, slow, as if someone were checking if I'd react. My throat went tight. I lowered the radio, I turned it off. The tap became a soft pressure sound, like someone's palm placed against the door, pushing just enough to feel if it moved. The wedge held. Then a sound that made my blood run cold. A key sliding into a lock. Not my deadbolt, the handle lock. I froze in the middle of my living room, radio in one hand, phone in the other. My eyes fixed on the door like it was a live wire. The key turned. Very carefully. My handle lock clicked, quiet, controlled. My deadbolt was still engaged. The wedge was still under the door. But whoever was out there had a key to my building's standard handle lock. They withdrew the key and paused. And then, close to the door, I heard a soft, almost gentle sound. Breathing. Someone leaning in. Listening. I felt my own breathing become the loudest thing in the world. I stepped backward, slow, toward the bathroom again, holding my phone close. I typed to Marin, keeping my hands steady. Someone has a key. They unlocked my handle. Deadbolt still locked. Her response came fast. Stay inside, do not speak, do not move near the door. If you can, get to an interior space. If they can unlock handles, they might try multiple units. Don't react. I backed into the bathroom and closed the door slowly, not latching it fully, just pulling it nearly shut so it wouldn't click. I sat on the floor against the tub, knees up again. Outside, the deadbolt rattled just once, like a fingertip testing it. Then silence. Then the key sound again, sliding in, turning, as if whoever it was had decided to reset the handle lock, perhaps to make it look untouched. The handle clicked softly. They were calm. They were methodical. Then footsteps moved away. I sat there, barely moving, listening to the receding steps. My mind replayed the key sound over and over. Landlords have master keys. Maintenance has keys. That meant the person in the hall either belonged in the building, someone with access, or had gotten access keys from someone else. The alert said it opens the door after it hears something. That could simply mean it doesn't waste time on empty units. It listens for signs of life and then uses keys, which meant silence was camouflage. A new message popped in the tenant group. Dana 1A. Someone opened 1C. I heard the door, then nothing, no yelling, but I heard footsteps inside their unit. Marco 2C. Call police? Dana 1A. No. Alert says no sound, text only. Police maybe can't come. Kira 3. B. I'm in my closet. I heard a whisper outside my door. Like someone said my name. I didn't answer. Marco 2C. How would they know your name? I swallowed hard. How would they know? A building directory by the mailboxes, names on packages, social media, delivery labels, a lot of ways. But someone said my name felt different. That wasn't a generic hello in a hallway. That was targeted. I turned off my phone's screen and held it tight, trying to conserve battery. In the dark bathroom, I let my eyes adjust. The quiet became thick. My ears strained for every tiny shift. Minutes passed, maybe 10, maybe 20. Time turns weird when you're trying to be invisible. At 1:29 a.m., another emergency alert came through. This one was shorter. Update. Remain sheltered. If entry is attempted, do not respond. If you have pets, secure them. Avoid running water, avoid televisions, avoid alarms. Do not attempt to leave. Avoid running water. That detail hit me harder than anything else so far, because it was specific and it was practical. Running water makes a distinct sound. So does a toilet refill, a sink faucet, a shower. So did my building's old pipes. If they were telling people to avoid water, it meant someone, somewhere, had already learned that even small household sounds were enough to draw attention. I needed to use the bathroom, but I refused to flush. I refused to run the sink. I accepted discomfort as the price of being quiet. I texted Marin again. Update says avoid running water. You hearing anything there? Her reply came slower this time, as if she had to wait between tasks. We're on backup protocols. Unit doors locked. They moved non-critical patients away from windows. We heard someone in a stairwell. Security used cameras. They saw a person standing at a door still, like they were listening. No forced entry, just waiting. Then they walked away when someone's phone rang on another floor, like they followed it. A person standing still at a door, listening. That image stayed in my mind like a photograph. Then she sent another message. Evan, if you have to relocate inside your unit, go interior. Closet, bathroom, behind tub. Don't be near a door. If they get in, they move slow. They listened for movement. I stared at the words "if they get in" and felt my throat tighten again. My apartment wasn't a bunker. It was drywall and cheap locks. If someone with keys decided my unit was worth entering, my deadbolt would slow them but not stop them if they had time. The wedge helped, but it was a temporary fix. If they pushed hard enough, the wedge might slip on carpet. I needed a better plan. In my work world, a better plan meant layers, hard barriers, distance, and an exit route. But my exit route was either the hallway or the balcony. Both were dangerous if something was outside waiting for sound. I thought about the building's back stairwell. There was a service stairwell at the far end that led down to the parking lot, usually used for moving furniture. It had a heavy metal door with a closer and a push bar. Those doors latch hard and make noise when they slam, but they can be held, they can be controlled. If I had to move, the goal wouldn't be to run. It would be to move like a ghost. But the alert said, "Do not attempt to leave." That meant the street wasn't safe. The threat wasn't contained to my building. It was moving through neighborhoods. I imagined a whole city sitting motionless in dark rooms, phones glowing, people breathing through their hands. I sat on the bathroom floor for a long time, listening to the building settle. At 2:10 a.m., a new sound came, faint but distinct. A door opening down the hall. It was a soft hinge sound, a gentle movement, like someone slowly pulling a door inward, the kind of sound that doesn't happen by accident. Then, after a pause, footsteps inside that unit. A few steps. A stop. A pause. Then a short, muffled sound that might have been a voice cut off quickly. My muscles locked, my skin prickled. I waited for shouting, for banging, for something loud and obvious. Nothing came. Just the sound of someone moving inside the neighbor's apartment, slow and controlled, with pauses that felt like listening. I realized then that the worst part wasn't noise. The worst part was the absence of it, the way the building held its breath. My phone lit with a new text from Marin. Hospital just got a county briefing. They won't say details, but they think it's organized. People using keys. People using quiet methods. Sound triggers them to focus on a unit. They move in teams. Organized. Teams. Keys. It was starting to sound less like a creature and more like people. People running an operation with a rule set. Listen, approach, enter, search, move on. But why would an emergency alert be written like a monster story? Why would officials say, "It opens the door," instead of "intruders with keys"? Unless they didn't want people to think they could fight. Unless they didn't want panic. Unless they didn't want people rushing into hallways screaming. Or unless the thing doing it wasn't fully understood. My eyes moved to the bathroom mirror, a dark rectangle reflecting nothing. I looked away. I tried to think like someone in emergency management. Alerts are usually carefully worded. They're tested. They have templates. This one was raw, urgent, almost personal. It sounded like someone learned the rules the hard way and pushed them out. At 2:26 a.m., there was a soft vibration in my pocket that I almost forgot I'd disabled. The vibration wasn't my phone. It was the building itself. A faint shudder through the floor, as if a heavy door had been closed somewhere below, controlled but not perfectly. Then, far away, a car alarm chirped once, like someone had brushed a handle. And after that, the neighborhood went dead silent again. I thought about my downstairs neighbor, an older guy named Ron who always watched late-night sports and let his TV volume drift. If his TV was on right now, it could be a beacon. The alert had said avoid televisions. I wanted to text him, warn him, tell him to turn it off. But any message might vibrate his phone if he didn't know to disable it. Any vibration might make noise. And if he was already in trouble, a buzz could be the thing that drew attention. I stared at the message screen and did nothing. The helplessness sat on my chest like weight. At 3:02 a.m., I heard someone on the stairs outside moving between floors. The stairwell in our building was enclosed but not soundproof. Footsteps traveled. These were measured, careful steps, one foot placed fully before the next, like someone trained to move quietly. They stopped near my floor. Then came that gentle testing sound again. Hands on doors, a subtle handle movement, pauses. The steps approached my unit. I pressed my palm to my mouth. My front door handle moved slowly, a controlled rotation. My deadbolt held. Then came the soft sound of a key in the handle lock again. It turned, then stopped, as if whoever was out there had realized the handle lock was already unlocked from earlier. A pause. A longer pause. And then the sound of something soft being placed against my door, like a cloth, or a sleeve, or a gloved hand. Something that would dampen noise. My blood went cold. They were preparing to work the deadbolt. I was in the bathroom, interior, quiet. But the bathroom door wasn't locked. If they came in, they could find me if they searched. In my head, I ran through every facility detail I knew. Deadbolts are strong and sheer, but the weak point is the frame. If you apply steady force, the screws can tear out. Many apartment frames are held by short screws that barely bite into the stud. A person who knows that can defeat a door without a lot of drama. The wedge would help. But if they already had the handle unlocked, they could apply pressure while turning the knob, trying to defeat the wedge's grip. I needed to disappear further. My bedroom closet was small, but it was deep enough to stand in, and it was full of hanging coats that could break up my silhouette if someone opened the closet door. The closet was also interior, but moving there meant crossing the living room and passing within a few feet of the front door. If they were listening at the door, they could hear my socks on carpet. They could hear fabric shift. I stayed still and made the choice that felt safest. Do not move while the threat is at the door. The door made a tiny sound, almost too small to be real, as pressure increased. The wedge compressed slightly. A faint rubber squeak whispered, a sound so slight that I might have imagined it. Then the pressure eased. The handle moved again, slowly. The door didn't open. A long pause followed, so long I wondered if they'd left. Then, right outside my door, I heard a sound that was almost gentle. A whisper. It wasn't loud enough to catch the words clearly, but it had a shape. Like someone saying something close to the wood. My brain tried to force meaning onto it. My name, a question, a request. Then the whisper stopped. More silence. And then footsteps moved away. I didn't move for a full minute after the steps faded because I couldn't trust distance. Sound travels. People can stop and listen again. Finally, when my legs began to cramp, I shifted my weight slightly, slow enough that the fabric of my jeans didn't scrape. My phone lit with a new message from Marin. They breached a house in German Village. Family had a baby monitor on. The audio was picked up from outside. They entered quietly. Police arrived later, but nobody wants to use sirens. Evan, whatever it is, it's tracking sound. Keep everything off. German Village was south of downtown, not far in city terms. Too close. I typed back with trembling fingers. They were at my door, key and lock, whispered, "Left." Her response came with a delay that felt like an hour. "I'm sorry, stay still, dawn is soon. Usually things change when daylight comes, keep radio ready." Dawn. As if daylight would change the rules. But I clung to the idea anyway because my brain needed something to aim at. I sat in the bathtub again, this time with the shower curtain pulled partly closed, not all the way because the rings squeak on the rod. I made myself small and listened until my ears rang with it. At some point, exhaustion did what fear couldn't. It forced my body into a light, fractured sleep. I woke to the dim gray shift of morning leaking under the bathroom door. My phone read 6:18 a.m. Another alert, this time longer and more structured as if officials had gotten their footing. Emergency update, 6:15 a.m. Continue sheltering indoors. Do not open doors for any reason. Keep all household noise to a minimum. Do not run appliances. Do not use televisions, radios at audible volume, or speakers. If you must communicate, use text. If you are in immediate danger and must contact emergency services, do so by silent text to 911 where available. Await further instructions. Text to 911. That was the first practical tool I'd seen that acknowledged the obvious. People would need help. I didn't even know if Franklin County supported it. Some places do, some don't, but the fact it was mentioned meant someone was trying to adapt. My muscles ached as I unfolded myself from the tub. The apartment was cold now. My heater had cycled off hours ago and the air felt stale. The world outside my windows was waking, but not the way it should. No kids running, no car doors slamming, no garbage trucks. Just a muted stillness. I crept to the living room and glanced toward the blinds without touching them. Through the thin slats, I could see the parking lot. There were cars. Some with doors open, frozen mid-action like someone had gotten out and never finished closing. A shopping cart tipped on its side. A plastic bag caught on a fence, barely moving. And at the far end, near the service alley, I saw a figure standing beside a sedan. They weren't breaking in, they weren't rushing. They were simply standing there, head slightly tilted, as if listening to the building itself. My stomach tightened. I stepped back from the blinds. If they were out there in daylight, then dawn hadn't ended anything. I checked the tenant group chat. It had become a stream of short, frightened texts. Kira 3. B. I can hear them outside my door again. Dana 1. A. Someone in stairwell. Footsteps. No one talking. Marco 2C. My smoke detector chirped low battery. I threw a towel over it. Please don't let it chirp again. Dana 1A. Do not touch it if it will chirp. Marco 2. C. I already did. It's quiet now. A low battery smoke detector chirp was a nightmare in this situation. That single periodic beep could draw someone like a lighthouse beacon. I thought about my own detector and felt a wave of dread. It was ceiling-mounted in the hallway near my bedroom. I couldn't remember when I last changed the battery. I didn't want to touch it. Touching it could set it off. Some detectors chirp when they're disturbed. Some chirp when power is restored. Some chirp when dust gets into the sensor. And then the reality hit. If the power went out or surged, alarms all over the city might start chirping. Car alarms, security systems, backup beeps, refrigerator beeps. Sound would explode everywhere, and whatever was listening would have a map made of noise. I needed to keep my own place as quiet as possible. That meant planning for the next 12 hours with minimal movement. I gathered supplies the quiet way. I filled a cup with water, slowly, at the sink with the stream barely turned on, then stopped immediately. The water sound seemed enormous in the quiet apartment. I carried the cup to the bathroom and set it down carefully on the counter. I grabbed granola bars from the pantry and opened the wrapper slightly, then stopped because the crinkling sounded too loud. I set them aside unopened. I moved my phone charger into the bathroom and plugged it in gently, hoping the outlet didn't spark or crackle. Then I sat on the bathroom floor again and waited. Around 8:30 a.m., the building's hallway made a sound I hadn't heard yet, the muted thump of something heavy being set down. Then the soft roll of wheels. A cart. Maintenance cart, my mind said automatically. I'd pushed those carts. They rattle. This one didn't. It rolled slowly, controlled. The cart stopped outside a unit. A handle tested, a pause, then a soft click. Someone entered. The cart rolled again. Stop. Handle, pause, click. It was moving systematically down the hall. I felt my heart accelerate. They were doing it in daylight, openly, with tools. My phone buzzed with a text from Marin. Our building had a laundry room in the basement. It was accessed by the main stairwell and had a heavy steel door with a keypad that never worked right. The laundry room had cinder block walls, no windows, a single metal door. It might be the most secure place in the building if it was empty and if the door could be held closed. But getting there meant opening my apartment door and stepping into the hallway where the cart was moving. Not an option while the hall was active. The cart stopped outside my door. I could tell because the rubber wheels ceased and the hallway quiet changed tone. I was in the bathroom again, but I could still hear the faintest sounds. A soft metallic clink, tools shifting. Then a gentle touch at my door, like a finger confirming the wedge's position by feel. I went completely still. A key slid into the handle lock again. It turned. Then the deadbolt knob moved. Slow. Testing. My deadbolt held. It required a key from the outside. I had changed nothing on it since moving in. It came with the unit. That meant the landlord, someone with the right keys, could open it. And if the people in the hall had the landlord's key set, my deadbolt wasn't protection. It was a delay at best. The key went into the deadbolt. I heard the faintest metal-on-metal sound and wanted to scream. The key turned. The deadbolt retracted. My wedge became the last barrier. Pressure came against the door, controlled, steady. The wedge compressed. The carpet gave. The door shifted a fraction with a soft groan. I swallowed my panic. I pressed my hand against my mouth and lowered my breathing until it was barely there. The door moved again. A fraction more. Then stopped, as if whoever was outside had decided to pause and listen. I held still so hard my whole body shook. Then, very close, that whisper again, clearer this time, still too soft to understand but undeniably human. It was coaxing. It sounded like a person trying to soothe a scared animal. My eyes watered with fear and frustration. I couldn't do anything, any movement could make sound. Any sound could invite entry. The wedge squeaked faintly as pressure resumed, and I hated myself for not having a better barrier. The door opened an inch. Light from the hallway cut into my living room. The wedge held, but it had slipped slightly. The door had gained a gap. In my mind, every alarm bell rang. The gap meant air movement. It meant a view inside if someone leaned down. It meant they could insert something to defeat the wedge or shift it. The door moved another fraction, and then it stopped. Silence. A long silence. In the gap, I imagined an eye at floor level, searching. I didn't move. Then, unexpectedly, the pressure eased and the door closed again, gently, as if someone had decided not to commit. I heard the deadbolt click back into place. The handle lock clicked. Footsteps moved away. The cart wheels rolled. I sat in the bathtub shaking, not from cold, but from the delayed flood of adrenaline that had nowhere to go. After several minutes, Marin texted, "Are you okay?" I realized I had never replied to her previous message and she was checking on me. They opened my deadbolt, got the door cracked but didn't come in. They locked it back and left. A long pause, then. That means they have full access keys. You cannot rely on your door. You need concealment and a secondary secure space. If the hall clears, consider moving to basement laundry or a locked interior room. But only if the hallway is empty and you can move silently. Concealment. Secondary space. I stared at my bathroom and felt the truth settle in. I was waiting to be discovered in a place that was obvious. If they came in and searched, the bathroom would be one of the first stops. I needed a hiding spot that didn't look like a hiding spot. I thought about the mechanical chase behind my bathroom, an access panel that led to plumbing lines. But opening it might make noise and it wasn't big enough. I thought about my closet, packed with coats, boxes, my winter gear. I could get behind it. But closets are obvious too. Then my mind went to something I had noticed when I moved in and then forgot. There was a small utility nook in the hallway outside my unit, a locked cabinet where the building's telecom lines ran. I'd seen maintenance open it once. It wasn't big enough for a person, but it was a clue. This building had hidden spaces that weren't for tenants, like the basement. I checked the time, 10:12 a.m. The cart had moved away. The hallway sounded empty. But I couldn't trust sound alone. Silence was the new camouflage for them too. I made a decision that felt like stepping off a ledge. I would move to the basement laundry room if I could do it without noise. Not now. Not immediately. I needed to prep. I needed to move like I was handling glass. I gathered essentials into a soft backpack. Soft because zippers and hard buckles clack. Phone, charger, radio, water bottle, partly filled, no sloshing. A hoodie, my small first aid pouch from my work bag, granola bars still unopened. Keys. I also grabbed a pair of work gloves. Nothing dramatic, just nitrile-coated fabric gloves that let you grip things without slipping. And then I sat again and waited another full hour, listening for footsteps. Around 11:30 a.m., my building made a new sound. The front entry door opened on the ground floor, that heavy metal door with its distinctive latch clunk. Then came quiet voices, muffled, brief, followed by silence again. My mouth went dry. They were inside again. I froze in the bathroom, backpack at my feet. The footsteps came up the stairwell, slow. Stop. Pause. Then the cart wheels again, softer this time as if they'd replaced them or were rolling on a cloth. It came onto my floor. I held my breath. I pressed my phone to my chest. The cart stopped outside my door again. A pause. Then, to my shock, the handle turned and the door opened wider this time. The wedge must have been shifted enough earlier to reduce its grip. The door opened with almost no sound. Someone knew how to move it without creaking. Light flooded the living room. I stayed still in the bathtub, curtain partly drawn, my body tucked tight. Footsteps entered my apartment. Not rushing. Not searching wildly. Just one step, then a pause. Another step, then a pause. Listening between each movement. They were mapping the space by sound, like a person feeling their way in a dark room. One of them moved toward the kitchen. I heard the faintest brush of fabric against my couch as someone passed. A second set of footsteps remained near the doorway, as if guarding, as if staying ready to leave. A whisper in the living room. Soft, controlled. Then the kitchen cabinet opened gently. I heard the faintest wood-on-wood sound. My stomach tightened. I had left the cabinet closed. Someone was searching. They opened a drawer, slowly, no rattle. They knew how to do this. I stayed perfectly still, and my mind screamed at me to run, to do something. But the rules were clear. Sound was what they wanted. I heard the refrigerator door open, no, not open, just the seal being tested with a hand, then closed again. Someone not interested in food, someone interested in signs of life. Then footsteps moved toward the bedroom. The bedroom door opened quietly. A pause. Then a soft rustle, like clothing being moved. My closet. I pictured my coats shifting, boxes being nudged. I squeezed my eyes shut. The person in the bedroom whispered again, too soft to understand. The whisper sounded almost disappointed. Then the bedroom footsteps moved toward the bathroom. I felt my muscles lock so hard my legs cramped. The bathroom doorknob turned slowly. The door opened an inch. The person paused. I could almost feel them listening through the crack, as if they expected to hear my breathing. I forced my breath to slow. In through my nose, out through my nose, tiny. The bathroom door opened wider. Light fell into the bathroom, pale and flat. I was in the tub, behind the curtain, partly obscured. The curtain was a cheap pattern. If someone looked directly, they might see my outline. If they stood still long enough, they might notice the slight movement of the curtain from airflow. The person didn't step in immediately. They paused in the doorway, listening. Then, slowly, they stepped into the bathroom. A second person stayed outside. I could tell by the lack of other movement. The one in the bathroom took another step, careful, and stopped near the sink. I heard a quiet sniff, like someone smelling for something. Then the shower curtain moved. Just a few inches. My heart slammed against my ribs. The curtain moved again, further, and bright bathroom lights spilled onto my face. For a fraction of a second I saw them. A person in plain clothes. Dark jacket, gloves, face partially covered by a scarf or mask. Not a costume, not theatrical, practical, eyes focused, calm, unhurried. They stared at me. I stared back. Everything in my body wanted to bolt, to flail, to make noise, to do anything but sit there like a caught animal. But I did the opposite. I stayed still. I didn't speak. I didn't gasp. I didn't move. The person held my gaze, head slightly tilted like they were assessing not just me, but my reaction. Then they raised one gloved finger and pressed it to the front of their mask in a universal signal, quiet. And then, this was the part that still doesn't feel real when I replay it, they gently let the shower curtain fall back into place, covering me again. They stepped backward. They left the bathroom. The door eased almost closed, but not fully latched. Footsteps moved away into my living room. A whisper. Then the front door opened. The footsteps left my unit, and the door closed, softly. I sat in the tub shaking so hard my teeth clicked. I pressed my knuckles against my lips to keep them from clacking. They had found me. They had seen me. And they had chosen not to take me, not to hurt me, not to do whatever this operation was doing. Which meant one of two things. Either I didn't fit what they wanted, or they were following a rule I didn't understand. My phone lit in my hand with a new alert at 11:52 a.m. Emergency update. If you encounter individuals attempting entry, do not respond. If you are approached directly, remain still and silent. Do not run. Do not shout. If safe, remain out of sight. Remain still and silent. Do not run. The alert wasn't telling people how to defend themselves. It was telling people how to survive an encounter. Because running made noise. Noise made you a target. I typed to Marin with trembling hands. They came inside. They found me. They looked at me and left. They signaled quiet. This is human. They have keys. They're not frantic. It's organized. Her reply came almost immediately, like she'd been waiting for the moment someone finally had direct contact. That matches other reports. Evan, listen. Hospital heard rumors it's a containment sweep. They're moving people out silently. Some are being relocated. Some are being left if they comply. Nobody trusts it, but the pattern is consistent. Still and silent =sign lower risk. Noise =sign focus. Do you have any identifying papers? ID? I did. My wallet, my work badge, my driver's license. I typed back, yes. Keep them accessible. If they return and gesture, comply slowly. No sudden moves, and try to move to a more secure interior location if you can without noise. But don't go into hallways if you hear movement. Containment sweep. Relocation. Those words sounded official, but the way it was happening, keys, whispers, silence, didn't feel like anything I recognized as normal public safety. I sat for a long time thinking about that person's eyes, calm, assessing. Not surprised to find me. Not interested in arguing. Just checking. As afternoon came, the building stayed unnaturally quiet. No one ran laundry, no one cooked, no one played music. We were all holding our breath, waiting for a rule to change. Around 2:40 p.m., another update came. Neighborhood Safety Update. Designated quiet routes will be established after nightfall. Do not attempt movement until instructed. Stay away from windows. If you are in a multi-unit building, expect door checks. Comply by remaining still and silent. After nightfall. Designated routes. Door checks. It was like the city was being treated as a building under maintenance. Systems shut down, movement controlled, people managed like occupants during a drill. Except the drill was real, and nobody knew who was in charge. I sat in my bathroom as the sky outside shifted toward evening again, my backpack ready, my radio silent, my phone on low brightness. At 6:05 p.m., a new message appeared in the tenant group. Dana 1A. I think they took 1C. I heard soft steps. Then I heard a wheeled cart. Then 1C door opened, then nothing. Later, the door was shut. No yelling, no banging, just empty. Kira, 3B. They checked me again. They looked in my room. They left. Marco, 2C. What is happening? Who are they? Dana 1A. No one knows, but noise is bad. Please keep quiet. I stared at the phrase. Later the door was shut and felt my stomach twist. If they were relocating people, they were doing it without any of the visible infrastructure of evacuation. No buses, no sirens, no megaphones. Just quiet. At 7:18 p.m., the power flickered. Just a blink, lights out, then on. But in that one blink, somewhere in the building, a smoke detector chirped. A single sharp beep. Then another, from a different unit. Then a car alarm outside chirped once, as if the power surge had set it off. The city's quiet cracked. My whole body went tense. I could almost feel the shift in attention outside, like a predator's ears lifting. I held my breath. The car alarm chirped again, longer this time. A third chirp. Then it stopped, as if it had reset. But the damage was done. Sound had punctured the quiet in multiple directions. Within minutes, I heard movement outside the building. Footsteps in the parking lot. Faster than earlier, still controlled but more urgent. Someone moving toward the source. Then, in the hallway, quick steps. Still quiet, but quicker than the slow searches from earlier. They were responding to sound. My phone lit with Marin's text. Power flickers here too, beeps everywhere. Security says teams are moving faster. Stay hidden. This is the worst time. The hallway footsteps paused at my door. A hand touched the handle. The deadbolt key slid in. It turned. My door opened a few inches again. This time, there was no long listening pause. A whisper came through the gap, soft but clear enough to understand. Still. One word. An instruction. I stayed in the bathroom tub behind the curtain, still, silent, my heart pounding. Footsteps entered, 2 sets. One moved toward the kitchen immediately. the other moved toward the bedroom. They were faster now, responding to the spike in sound. The bathroom door opened. The curtain shifted. I didn't move. The same eyes, maybe the same person, maybe not, looked at me for a second. Then they nodded once, like I was doing the correct thing. They let the curtain fall back. The bathroom door eased closed again. And then, this was new, they tapped twice on the wall near the bathroom, not hard, just enough to make a tiny vibration. 2 taps, then a pause, then 2 taps again. A pattern. My brain struggled to interpret it. Then I realized they weren't tapping for me to respond. They were tapping to mark something for their team quietly. A signal. The footsteps moved away, and I heard the front door close again, softly. They were not taking me. They were marking me. For later? For safety? For control? I didn't know. But I knew one thing with absolute clarity now. The rules of this event were not about fighting. They were about surviving a system that had decided the loudest people were the problem. Night fell fully, and outside, the city stayed dim and tense, as if everyone had agreed not to draw attention from the sky. At 9:03 p.m., a final alert came through, longer than the others. Quiet route instructions. If you are instructed to relocate, move slowly. Carry only soft items. Keep devices silent. Do not speak. Follow hand signals. If you are not instructed, remain indoors. Remain still when approached. Do not attempt to join groups outside. Updates to follow. Hand signals. Follow groups. Relocation. It was official enough to sound like a plan and vague enough to make my skin crawl. I sat on my bathroom floor in the dark, listening to the building, and tried to decide what was worse. Staying where I was, marked and waiting, or moving into the unknown along a quiet route, guided by people who entered homes with keys and whispered through doors. At 10:17 p.m., I got a text from an unknown number. No name, no context. Just a single line. Be ready in 15. Bag soft, shoes off until outside. My blood turned to ice. I stared at it until the letters blurred. Then I typed the only question I could think of, and even that felt dangerous. Who is this? No reply. A second message arrived. Unit 2B. Do not reply again. Unit 2B. That was me. They knew exactly where I was. They had my number. They were instructing me not to respond. My hands shook. I wanted to text Marin immediately, but if the instruction was do not reply, maybe any outgoing text would be monitored. Maybe the risk wasn't sound at all. Maybe the risk was attention. I texted Marin anyway because I needed someone to know. Unknown number. Told me be ready in 15. Identified my unit. Said do not reply again. Her response came fast. That's happening to others. Some get moved, some don't. If you choose to comply, do it slowly, keep ID, don't speak. If you choose not to, stay hidden. I can't tell you which is safer. I read her last line again and again. I can't tell you which is safer. Neither could I. The hallway outside my door made the soft roll of wheels again. The cart stopped. A faint tap came at my door, not a knock, just a light touch, like someone brushing the wood. Then the whisper, close and calm. Evan. Bag. Now. They said my name like they'd said it 100 times. My throat tightened. My whole body screamed not to move. But the instruction from the alert echoed, if you are instructed to relocate, follow hand signals. This was the moment the story of my night stopped being stay inside and hope and became a choice with consequences. I stood up slowly in my socks, moving like a machine. I lifted my backpack, careful not to let the zipper clack. I slid my wallet into my pocket with a deliberate, silent motion. I put my phone in my hand, screen off. I left my shoes by the door like the text had said. I approached the front door without letting my socks scuff. I placed my hand on the deadbolt and waited, listening. No sudden sounds, no yelling, just controlled quiet. I unlocked the deadbolt. I eased the door open the smallest amount possible. In the hallway, 2 people stood close, faces partially covered, gloved hands relaxed, not pointing anything, not threatening, just present. Behind them, the cart. A third person farther down the hall, watching the stairwell. One of the 2 nearest raised a hand, palm down, and made a slow lowering gesture. Calm. Then they pointed to my feet, shoes off. Then they pointed down the hall toward the stairwell. Then they held up 2 fingers. 2 minutes, or second floor, or second route. Some kind of code I didn't know. I nodded once. No words. I stepped into the hallway in my socks, carrying my soft bag. The hallway smelled like dust and old carpet. The overhead lights were dim, maybe intentionally. Our building was a quiet tunnel now. As I moved, I noticed something I hadn't allowed myself to notice before. On some doors, there were tiny marks near the frame, subtle chalk or tape indicators placed low where a person's eye might miss them. Marks. Some doors had them, some didn't. I wondered, with a sick twist in my stomach, what the marks meant. We reached the stairwell. The person at the far end opened the heavy stairwell door slowly and held it, preventing the latch from clacking. We descended in socks, 1 step at a time, with the precision of people moving through a museum at night. On the ground floor, the building's front entry was cracked open, held by a wedge similar to mine. Outside, the street was dim and eerily still, no traffic, no laughter, no normal nightlife. And then I saw them. In the shadows across the street, between parked cars and the trunks of leafless winter trees, there were figures standing still, heads slightly tilted, listening. Not running, not shouting, not breaking things, just waiting for sound. The 2 people guiding me didn't look at them directly. They didn't engage. They simply kept us moving, low and steady, along the edge of buildings where sound would be dampened by brick and snow-damp grass. A quiet route. I understood then that the emergency alert hadn't been poetic. It hadn't been a horror line for drama. It had been a rule for survival in a city where sound had become the difference between being ignored and being found. And as we moved down the dark sidewalk of a real street in Columbus, heading toward a destination I couldn't see, I realized I had crossed an invisible line. I was no longer hiding from whatever was out there. I was now being processed through it. And the only way to stay alive, at least for the next hour, was to become as silent as the city itself. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.